Bruchim habayim, welcome one, welcome all, and mazel tov, as we have concluded Sefer Haflaa, and we are venturing forth into Sefer Zroim. We find ourselves at a very interesting time on the calendar. We've just finished the Yomim Tovim, and we're heading back into regular life. And as I ever point out, that's exactly what Haflaa to Zroim is all about. Haflaa means something extraordinary. Zroim is part and parcel of the earth coming back and landing. And here we are making this transition today. We're moving from Haflaa and we're moving on to Zroim. God should help that this should be a book that we should study. It's a little bit of a lengthy book. Some of the topics discussed might be a little foreign to us as we're not familiar with all the botany as the Rambam describes it. But God should help that we should be able to learn this book with great strength. And really, Haflaa and Zroim are the body and the soul. Haflaa is something that comes from beyond, Zroim that comes from the earth. And as Rambam concludes his book, he tells us that we have to give, but given a measure. Don't give too much, don't give too little. And we have to sort of make sure that we have this balancing act between going above and beyond and moving outside of the boundaries and keeping them within the boundaries. So mazel tov, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Today's Siyum is dedicated Leilu Nishmas in loving memory of Rabbi Moshe Shakevich, a shliach. Today is his yahrzeit, a shliach from Milan. He was an individual who was diligent about studying 3 prakim Rambam, not just studying it, but learning it. And he also would actually learn 1 parak so that he would be able to discuss the topics of the 1 parak with the community, but he on his own was very dedicated. And may the words of Torah and may the enthusiasm that we gain here be an aliyah, bring an aliyah to his neshama. Thank you very much, everybody. I want to thank all the staff who are behind the scenes making this all happen. And we have our guest this time. We've had so many illustrious and esteemed guests. And this is actually going to be an interesting program tonight. It's a little bit different than the ordinary, because what we're going to do is we're going to travel through the various editions that are available to date of the Rambam. Some of us are familiar with some of these editions, some of them not. I personally have the pleasure of delivering a Rambam Shir and Chabad. I've seen myself firsthand what the pros and the cons and seeing which Rambam to use for what and which Rambam, that Rambam I'd be able to look there. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Rabbi Motti Wilhelm, who has actually published an article on this topic on anash.org, and he's actually going to be giving us firsthand glimpses and understandings of, hey, if you want to study the Rambam in this way, choose this, look this, and here we go. Welcome, Rabbi Motti Wilhelm.
Thank you, Rabbi Resnick.
Welcome. So I understand when people first started Takanas Rambam, they took out the old print, which was a little bit not a little fuzzy, faded, and they were learning it. But thank God, since that time, we've had many new additions to come to ours. So why don't we begin with what I believe is the first modern edition of the Rambam, correct me if I'm wrong, and that is the Rambam La'am. I think that's the first person who tried to make a user-friendly Rambam. And if you can, I know that you have a special presentation for all of us here, those of us watching live, those of us who are on Chabad.org, on YouTube, and are going to be watching this. So this is not one that you can just listen to. It would be worthwhile to actually look at the screen and watch. And we'll hand over the mic to you, Rabbi Motti Wilhelm. Take it away.
So you are correct. The Rambam La'am is the first one. But the Rambam La'am is actually interesting enough. It's the first, it even preceded the Takanas Rambam. It was made, I believe, in the Tafshin Chaf, Tafshin Lamed. It came 10 to 15 years before the Rebbe instituted learning Rambam every day. Now that was the only full beer on Rambam, the only full modern commentary on Rambam until about 15 years ago. Until then, any bar mitzvah bacher or any adult that wanted to purchase a Rambam, a commentary, only had one option. Between 10 to 15 years ago, this new thing started in Israel. A new organization opened up, and they began to publish a Rambam. A few years later, it came to America. Since then, there are approximately 10 sets. So it's over a small amount of time, from Tafshin Mem Daled until Samach, the Ayin, it was only one set. And now with 10 years after that, 15 years, they're holding already 10 sets, and there's always plans for more. So
I have no idea how people learned Rambam before that. Yeah.
me neither. So we'll start off with Rambam La'am. Rambam La'am is the classic. Again, until 15 years ago, that was what everyone had in their house. That's what
we saw the Rebbe studying his Takana from, right? Okay.
Right. So that's the only one I don't have a presentation for. I didn't manage to get a picture. The Rambam La'am, if you look it was created by Meister Rav Kook. And Meister Rav Kook since then have printed many Rishonim with footnotes, with explanations. This was the first one. It was, I guess, the how they came into the scene of printing Rishonim, and it doesn't follow the later way they did it. They had their own way of doing it, which they switched in the following years. Now, the Rambam, it was not created for daily study. It was created for perhaps a library, perhaps someone who is studying a piece here, a piece there. So it fills that need. It doesn't fill the need so much as someone who is studying 1 parak a day or 3 prakim a day. And what I mean by that is that the explanation is it will reference the sources. It will go a bit more into depth. It won't try to stay most of the later, the more modern, the more recent commentaries try to stay more at a basic level to allow you to study that 1 parak a day or 3 prakim a day. Rambam will try to go a bit more into depth. Will give you the sources. Very frequently, the footnotes are giving you sources to the Bavli, to the Yerushalmi, to the Rishonim, discussing that. Now, that is a very big maila. It gives you a bit more depth. You're not just learning what the Rambam says, you're learning why the Rambam says it, you're learning the background, the discussion in the Gemara that led up to what the Rambam says, the opinion the Rambam is following. However, on the other hand, since it wasn't geared for a daily study, it does sometimes leave gaps. It will sometimes not, just a translation of a word, which you're expecting to find. It might not have it. It might not have the simple, what is the Rambam saying here? It might leave a gap over there. Additionally, the volumes, it was created by a team. It was not created by a single editor. So what I just described is going to change from volume to volume. One volume will be more basic. The other volume will be more into the sources, into the machlekes and the Gemara, or the discussion of the Rishonim. That is a basic view of the Rambam La'am. The next one that was printed, again, that was the one that came out after that, was you see it in Rabbi Resnick's bookshelf right behind him. Orange set, pretty prominent, you can't miss that. Is created by Mifal Mishnah Torah. It was funded actually by Lubavitchers, but it was not a Lubavitcher group creating it. And their goal, they describe the organization, Kol HaTorah LaKol Echad. The entire Torah, the Rambam, to every single individual. They want to make Rambam as simple as possible, as accessible as possible, as easy as possible. They set out to do that. They're going to make everyone understand what the Rambam is saying. So we'll start with show an example of what here's a sample page of the Rambam. It's from Zroim, paragraph V. So you see over here,
we can't see it. Can you make it? Is it possible to make it bigger?
You can see the image and all?
Yeah, we see it, but it's very small.
Is it better?
All we're seeing is just you were seeing your folder with all the images on them. We don't see the one image individually. Can you double click it?
I did. Let me try that again.
Okay.
Let me try this again.
Oh, there we go.
All right. You see here's a paragraph V from the prakim we're going to be learning. You see here, the explanation is kept to a minimum. They will explain a word. They will give you pola mitzvah. They'll give you they give it scientific names frequently, which might help, but for many of us doesn't help. But they give you what these plants are. They have a picture. They'll show you at the bottom. You see a chart of the Rambam is describing different plants, how they could be planted. It makes a picture. They show a picture for you. On the top left, you see the Rambam is describing planting in diagonal, how you could do the kalayim. They make exactly a picture for you how you can make that simple to understand. They'll have charts. We'll show another picture right now in the back. They take it to the next level. They have in the back, for example, this is Roim. It's all about plants. They'll have a picture of every single plant discussed in the Rambam. That is, again, this is all part of their mission to make the Torah, make the Rambam accessible to every single person. They have the Rambam being studied in Israeli high schools by young high school boys, young high school girls. I think even children. It's not Lubavitcher. He's talking about the Mizrahi. And they want to make it that a high school boy or even younger could understand the Rambam. And they did a phenomenal job in that aspect. You have, again, the basic explanation. Any hard word is explained. Any basic explanation you need is there, with a chart, with a picture. And that is their goal. However, since that is their goal, they are not going to be going deeper into the Rambam. They will always be discussing what the Rambam says. Almost never will they discuss why the Rambam says that, or a contradiction in the Rambam, or anything beyond the simplest level. They want to keep it simple, and that's what their goal is, and they stick to that. That is, when you're looking for, it seems like the Rambam, why is the Rambam gives this example? Or why does the Rambam hold this way? The Rambam seems to contradict something I said earlier. You usually will have to check somewhere else. If you have another commentary, the modern commentary, you look there. If you have the classic commentary, you might have to look there. But that will, for the most part, that will not be addressed in this Rambam. That is one chesaron that comes up in this Rambam. Then there is also the fact that they follow a certain ideology. They're very strong into the Rambam. They follow the Rambam as the first and the final opinion. So when that expresses itself in a few ways. First of all, when they're looking for a way to explain the Rambam, they will first and foremost go to the Rambam's other Sefer, Peres Mishnayos, which is Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam's letters, other works of the Rambam, and they can ignore at times. They can ignore all the classic commentaries. They could all be agreeing on one thing. Shulchan Aruch could be following the opinion. They will stick to how they understand the Rambam. They call it Rambam al pi Rambam, Rambam based on the Rambam's own words. Now, at times, it makes sense. The Rambam explains one thing in Mishnah Torah and another thing in Peres Mishnayos. You would probably assume he's explaining the same idea. He's following the same logic to understand the Gemara. When it comes to Moreh Nevuchim, it becomes a bit more tricky. Moreh Nevuchim is more of a philosophy, not so much halachic work, and they will try to always put the Moreh Nevuchim and translate the Mishnah Torah based on the Moreh Nevuchim. One example I remember, I couldn't find the exact source, was the Rambam in Mishnah Torah discussing Malachim, angels, towards the beginning, discussing different levels of angels. In Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam says that there is no such thing as actual angels. There is no existence of angels. When the Torah talks about angels, it's the mitzvahs that you do. The mitzvahs to protect you, the mitzvahs to guide you, the schus of the mitzvahs. So when the Rambam here in Mishnah Torah, the Rambam is saying there are different levels of angels, they try to, or they explain the Rambam based on the Moreh Nevuchim, which, again, there are definitely opinions who do explain the Rambam that way, but that is not the classic way of explaining the Rambam, definitely not the way the Rebbe understood it. That is the Mifal Mishnah Torah. Now, on a practical note, they try to make the Rambam accessible. They also do that practically. You have currently in America there are 4 different formats. You have the 4-volume large format. You have 16 soft cover volumes or 16 hardcover volumes. You have pocket size. You get them all in America. Make it as accessible, both, again, the way they're translating and the practical way to buy the Sefer, also very much that way. Shortly after that, a few years after that, so after they completed their set, so the Steinsaltz Institute, they began making their set. They came out with it very fast, actually. Came out in about 2-3 years.
Was Rabbi Steinsaltz himself involved in this? Do you know?
So he was involved the same way he was involved in all of his recent publications. Tanakh or Mishnah is even more recent. That they had a team, and he was looking it over. He was editing it to a certain extent, and it has his name on it. But it was the main work was done by a team based on his model. Took his model, the Gemara, and they copied that to Tanakh and to, in this case, the Rambam. But since it's modeled on the Rambam, it's modeled in the Gemara, they're using many of the same methods. If you look, pull up a page of his. Here you have a page of the Rosh Steindal's Rambam. It's very similar in style to the Gemara. He has a beer. The beer is not meant for the lowest level. The same with the Gemara. The Gemara, the way is different than an art scroll. Art scroll is meant for across the board. His Gemara was already meant for someone who was a bit on a higher level. That's the way he explained it. And the Rambam also, he does not stick to the lowest. He does not stick to the most basic explanation. You see the explanation is a bit lighter over here. There's not on every everything that every word or every phrase. It's going to be a bit less, a bit lighter over here, but it's going to be a bit deeper, a bit of a deeper level than the Mifal Mishnah Torah, because again, he's not catering to the most basic level. Now, other features in this Rambam, one feature that I enjoyed is he has on the bottom Sakim V'Shittas. He has the way the Rambam is brought in practical halacha. Now, he doesn't only stick. He doesn't stick only to the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah and the Alter Rebbe. He will bring, if you see over here, this is the first parak of Zroim. He'll bring over here, they're talking about Kalayim and Eretz Yisrael, discussing if Kalayim and Eretz Yisrael currently is Midaraisa or Midarabanan. And he brings, it's not only from the Shulchan Aruch and the Rambam and the Mishnah Berurah, he brings the Mashdam, Chazanish, Yitzhak Talmudis, who go into a wider discussion. You see the next one he brings some Kapach, Rekavis Mishnah. He's not limited to who he brings. He'll give you more of a wider glance within the halachic discussion. And he continues. Besides on the page, he has also at the end of each volume, in a similar style, he has broader discussions. In this case, you'll have Matnas Aniyim. So Matnas Aniyim is taught you give certain gifts to the poor. You have Meiser Ksafim, give a tenth of your profit. When that's discussed more the later authorities, and he'll bring in, I believe it's about 5 to 10 pages, discussing and giving you an overview of how the Rambam discussed Meiser Ksafim, how contemporary halacha looks at that concept. One other idea I noticed discussed was wearing a yarmulke. Where in Sefer Ava we discusses saying Hashem's name with a head uncovered. So he brings 5 pages in the end about wearing a yarmulke and the halachic discussion about that, when it's necessary, how it's necessary, etc. He brings the Rebbe from time to time. He has one of these discussions. He brings whether the science in the Rambam. How do we approach the science in the Rambam? Do we approach it as ancient science and it's moved on since then? Or do we approach it as part of the Torah and it can never be changed? So he actually brings the whole discussion. He brings Rebbe's opinion. He brings other opinions. That's at the end of Sefer Mada, where the first part of the Rambam discusses the astronomy. That would be the second Rambam, the Steindal's Rambam.
Okay, we got 2 more Rambams to go. So choose your next, the best 2 you want.
All right. So I'll choose so we don't have any more complete set so much. There's a Chitik Rambam, coming out right now, the middle coming out is a Lubavitcher. It's a Rambam that is being backed by a group of Shluchim in Eretz Yisrael. They are attempting to bring Rambam to a wider crowd. It's sponsored by the Chitik family, so it's widely known as the Chitik Rambam. And they model after the art scroll Gemara. Let me pull up a image of that. So if you look at the page here, again, you don't have the source of daf like you have in Gemara, but the idea is the same as the art scroll Gemara. You have the text, you have a full beer of interwoven into the words. Then you have ha'aris, you have footnotes with going a bit deeper into it. In the back, and besides for that, the article doesn't have. They have halacha l'maisa, how the Rambam what the halachas the Rambam bring are discussed by later authorities. And they have short little iyunim in the back, going into depth and discussing what the Rambam says a bit more in depth than what they go into over here.
Rabbi Motti Wilhelm, I must say that just personally, I know they don't have most of the Rambam, but this one almost makes Rambam too easy. It becomes bedtime reading, and God should help them. They should finish the entire set. But I personally found that they take the Rambam and they just literally make it. They do a better job than our scroll does. They should do the Gemara too.
They spoon feed Rambam to you. That they definitely do.
They certainly do.
And you get to choose what is not one or the other. You choose. If you want the basic, you have the commentary on top. If you want a bit more depth, you have the footnotes. If you want even more than that, you go to the back. If you want halacha, so it's not one or the other. You have the different levels to choose from. That is a quick overview, and I'll choose one more. This is an interesting one
and because it's overseen, I think, by Chabad. They actually, I've noticed they bring a lot of the Rebbe's understandings of the Rambam as well in the Chitrik Rambam.
I think they bring it whenever possible. So I'll just discuss the last one, which is an interesting one for a different reason. Is the Oiz V'Had Rambam. So the Oiz V'Had Rambam, they also have their set of Gemara, the Sifta Gemara, 150 volumes or so. They're making a Rambam, again, based on their Gemara model.
Have they finished the entire set?
They haven't. They're moving their goal is 48 volumes. I think they have about close to 20. They're moving very fast. They have a whole team.
How long ago did they start this?
Less than 2 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
They're moving very fast.
The Chitrik group to catch up.
Yeah. They have a full team behind them. So you see over here, it's the same model as the Mesifta.
Can you zoom in for us a little bit?
You see this?
Can you zoom in? Yeah, very good. Okay. A little bit more zoom in. Yeah, perfect.
All right. So you see over here, it's again the same model as the Mesifta. That's 48 volumes for the whole Rambam. That ready. How do you get Rambam 48 volumes? But you see over here that they're not being cheap on paper over here. They have 2 lines of Rambam. It's a full page of explanations. Just to get to the first word, they already have 3.5 paragraphs. And they're very lengthy. Before they get to the footnotes, the commentary is very lengthy. Then they have footnotes to go even more. And then you have in the back, you have, let me show the next page. The back, you have similar to the Mesifta Gemara, you have the Iyunim. It goes more into depth. Again, it discusses there's a much wider range than any of the other sets. It will go into each and every detail and bring down almost any opinion they can find. And again, it ends up being 48 volumes for Rambam. Now, I don't know how much of a value it has for daily study, unless you have 6 hours a day to learn Rambam, but it's definitely a valuable research tool or tool to have in the library, looking for something, you want to see different opinions. It's definitely a valuable tool. Now, the reason I chose this one over the other runs we didn't discuss yet is because Oiz V'Hada actually has a reputation for not being eager to quote the Rebbe. And surprisingly, in this project, they changed from one extreme to the other. So you have over here is the first page of Hilchos Malachim Muhammad Siyum, the last set of Halachos and Rambam. If you look over here, you'll find Likutei Sichos quoted, I think, 4 to 5 times just on this page. I was discussing it. There's a bacher who made a full Sefer just in the last 2 Prakim of Rambam and collected all the Rebbe's explanations. He said when this volume came out, he was disappointed. He didn't have the chance to send his Sefer to them. When he opened the Sefer, he was shocked how many they quote the Rebbe almost at every single page. The reason for that is it's a separate institution. It's Oiz V'Hada working with somebody else, so they are more friendly to Lubavitch. And again, they quote the Rebbe all over the place. They quote the Chabad Rebbeim all over the place, and especially in the last volume on the Rambam, which it's coming out of order. The last volume of Rambam, they have the Rebbe almost on every page, or numerous times on every page.
Yasher Koyach, thank you very, very much. Do you do this is this just a hobby of yours? Is this where all your money goes to buy more sets of Rambam?
There's only a limited amount of sets of Rambam, so runs out.
Is there any way we could get a list of this overview? It would be very helpful for us as we make decisions which sets to acquire.
So I
published
an article about 2 years ago discussing the sets and some I didn't mention here. I would like to update it. I could send the link.
Yeah, please put it in the chat for those people. Yeah.
I don't have it.
Okay.
On my second.
Well, okay. Well, we'll give you. We'll let people find it. It's on anash.org. Sets of Rambam by Rabbi Motti Wilhelm. Okay.
If you search which set of Rambam I should buy on anash.org, you should be able to find it.
Okay. All right. And as we get ready to conclude our program today, Rabbi Motti, if you would please honor us with, we'll ask the moderator to put the last halacha as we all collectively will conclude Sefer Haflaa and move on to Sefer Zroim. So if we can please put that up on the board, and please, if you can honor us with reading the very last halacha. You don't have to do it the Ois V'Hadar way with all the explanation.
Have it up?
It's not up here, so why don't we? Do you have it?
I have it on in front of me.
Okay, why don't you start reading and I'll put it up on the screen. You can ask the host to please put it up.
The person should not donate, should not be makdish or donate in other manners everything he owns. And he does it, he goes against what the Torah says. It says from what you have, not what everything you have. Like the Chum explained. The Ein Chassidus is not going, being pious elashtus. He's being foolish. He's losing all his money, and then he will need to ask for charity. It's such a person, you do not have mercy on him. And on such a person and others like him to say chassid shoita, a foolish, a pious fool, of those that among those that destroy the world. What is the right way someone who uses his money for mitzvahs? Should not spend more than a fifth, 20%. And you should follow, like the Nevi'im said, that a person should, everything he does should be with the judgment, should be with the Seder. It applies equally to things of the world or to mitzvahs. Even a carbon which you have to bring. Torah said you should only bring what you could afford. It doesn't say you should spend all your money. For sure, if it's something that you're not obligated to give, but you just made a vow. You definitely should only vow what you could afford. It says in the pasuk that you should give each person according to what Hashem gave you. As a shaka, min prakam shel sefer zeh shloish v'arbaim, puchas shvuos shneimasa prakim, puchas and darim shloish asa prakim, puchas naziros asara prakim, puchas arachim v'charamim, shmona prakim v'chaman and sayin.
And we begin right away. B'shem Hashem keleilam. I chose to fulfill your mitzvahs. Please, if you don't mind, we'll skip right to the very first chapter, the first halacha. It's a short one. Please, Rabbi Motti, bring us in, all of us together, that we should be able to learn the Sefer with diligence.
As the rest name in Israel, we plant 2 types of seeds together, and one in Eretz Yisrael. Later, you get Malchus Menatesh, Nema Sadcha, like Scissor Kalayim. You should not plant your field Kalayim.
Yasha Koyach, thank you very, very much for your time, for taking the time, for taking us through this. I know you had prepared many other editions, and Oil Chazain Lamayed, God willing, we'll get to them. And God should help that we should utilize each of these editions and continue and strengthen our study of Rambam. Thank you very much, everybody. I know that one of the highlights of our program always has been the quiz, but due to some technical difficulties, we were unable to produce a quiz. So maybe we owe 2 quizzes next week, next Siyum. Apologize for that. But as we get forth, this is a lengthy Sefer, a Sefer that some of us sometimes get stuck a little bit on. Let us try, all of us collectively, to do our part to make this a beautiful season of Rambam study for all of us. Hatzlacha, thank you very much, Rabbi Motti Wilhelm. Thank you for all the organizers. Hatzlacha Rabba, a gute Nacht, all the best.